Welcome to Makeshift Clarity, everyone. My name is David, and today I want to talk about Ad Astra. Now, when I went to go see this movie on opening night, I had every intention of filming a review immediately afterwards. But when I walked out of the theater, I was surprised by how simple the movie was. And while I really enjoyed it, I didn't know if I really had that much to say about the film. And it wasn't until a few days after opening weekend, when we had had a lot of people responding to the movie, that I started to feel like I had all these opinions welling up inside me. I saw many people online calling the movie boring and critiquing the use of voiceover, and I was kind of surprised by the backlash that the film was receiving. And so I want to defend the movie today, but also talk about expectations. Now, I don't really like when people use expectations as a way of justifying something of poor quality. And my recent encounters of this were the final season of Game of Thrones and The Last Jedi, where the creators of the project, or people who did enjoy it, used expectations as a way of saying, this is why you didn't enjoy this. It was good, but your expectations were too high, or you expected different things, and because it didn't go the way you wanted it to, that's why you didn't enjoy it. And I think that if something is good, if a movie is good, if a TV show is good, it should speak for itself no matter what our expectations are. However, I want to talk about Ad Astra and why I think it's a different case of expectation. So when we consider Game of Thrones or Star Wars, expectations work differently here because our expectations come from something already in progress. We have an experience of those characters, of tone, of atmosphere, of the story, and how things work in those worlds. And so while our expectations might not always be met, that's okay so long as we are encountering something that feels consistent. I think expectations work differently when it comes to a movie like Ad Astra because we're carrying in recent experiences of other space movies like Interstellar, The Martian, Gravity, and First Man. I don't bring this up to excuse any faults that Ad Astra may have. If you didn't enjoy the film, that's totally okay. And if you don't feel like watching it a second time and giving it another chance, that's okay too. But personally, sometimes I can feel my past experiences of similar movies affecting my first time experience of something like Ad Astra, where I feel, oh, I encountered this story. What is the story trying to do to me? What's the director trying to do? Is there going to be a twist? What's going on here? I think sometimes those things can get in the way of me experiencing what the filmmaker is trying to present to me. I think we've seen so many movies set in space now that when it came to Ad Astra, we were wondering, okay, what are you gonna do that's different? And on a storytelling level, this movie functions on two levels, in my opinion. On the surface, we have the very simple story of a son going to find his father out in space, and that's the foundation of the movie. However, on a more complex level, the film is really focused on trauma and about dealing with your emotions, and it's all about Brad Pitt's character going to find his father, but also to confront his issues with abandonment and his issues with withholding himself. When I've seen people criticize this movie for using voiceover, I think it's an unfair critique because the film is all about what's going on inside him emotionally and mentally. And so the use of voiceover is so appropriate. It's about him processing this journey. James Gray is choosing to have the film rooted in the psyche of Brad Pitt's character. And so the use of voiceover here makes a lot of sense to me. Let's talk about people calling Ad Astra slow. I wouldn't call the pace of Ad Astra slow. I would call it intentional. For a movie so focused on mental and emotional progress, this pace feels very true to life. As someone who is a big fan of therapy, I can tell you that the pace of these things is slow. And I think that for a movie focused on these themes, they got it exactly right. Now, of course, if you go in expecting an action space movie, it might feel slow to you. But I think that's another example of expectations, going into a movie wanting something out of it that it's not. It's been very interesting watching the debate around this movie, from people calling it a masterpiece and people calling it boring and dull and meaningless. I think that Ad Astra is a movie that had the unfortunate timing circumstances of coming after a lot of other space movies. And I think it does suffer from a certain case of expectations. And even my own, I felt that going in. But there's something about this movie that really stayed with me after I watched it. I'm really excited to go see Ad Astra again, now knowing what the filmmakers are trying to present to me, and now that the experiences of those other movies, those other space movies, movies have kind of faded away. This is really the first time I've ever felt this specific way about a movie. So I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. What was your experience like of Ad Astra? Did you think it was a masterpiece? Did you think it was boring and dull? And if you did, are you tempted to go give it another try? And also, what is your experience of this word expectations, especially when it came to The Last Jedi and Game of Thrones? I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.